Hey, welcome back. First things first, I gotta thank every single one of you viewing this. The channel has just been growing like a weed, and I give total credit to you all for that. I really can't tell you how much Pat and I appreciate your viewership. I know from the comments, some of you are getting something out of this, so please share with us what your thoughts are, positive or negative. We're always happy to respond to those messages, and sometimes we even make videos about what you have to say. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the more challenging aspects of flying, landing. We're actually going to look at a video of a landing that doesn't go quite the way we might want it to, and we're going to figure out why that happened. Most of us remember from our first lesson, we might have a little bit of nerves going for us, but it is exciting to get up in the airplane and you kind of figure out the basics in the first 15 minutes. The reality is flying's not that hard to do. Flying well takes a lot of study and practice, thought, and good decision making, but the basics, when your CFI is sitting there beside you, not that tough to do, and it is exhilarating to go fly an airplane on your own. But every pilot on the planet knows that first landing, that 10th landing, that 10,000th landing, you know, if you've got a little bit of a crosswind or a short runway or a narrow runway or a distraction, it can get kind of interesting. And that's what happens here. So let's just take about 40 seconds and look at what happens to this young fella as he tries to land an airplane on a perfectly good runway and see what happens. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that's not the outcome you're looking for. He went off the left side of the runway, got into the grass, hit a couple signs, really damaged the airplane, and this is important. I'm not making fun of this guy. This could happen to any one of us. It could happen to me. So let's just look at this from a purely analytical standpoint where we're not pointing fingers, we're not blaming anyone, but we're saying, how did this happen? How could it have been prevented? And maybe most importantly, how can you make sure you never get into this situation ever? Let's take a look at this again and just stop and take a look at what's going on. Now, he's looking fairly good coming in initially. You'll notice the airspeed indicator. He's solidly in the white arc. He is working the controls, but you'll notice he's off to the left of the center line. That's actually not unusual. We are pilots who sit in the left seat normally. Sometimes you have tandem seating where you're in the middle, but in this, a Cessna 172, you're in the left seat. And for some psychological reason, that tends to cause people to line up to the left of center line. You want to break this habit as soon as you can. It's really important that you get on that center line. And it doesn't matter if you're flying a 152 or if you're flying an Airbus A350. That center line is there for a reason. It provides a guide for you. It gives you good clearance off the sides. You're not going to hit anything. But mostly it gives you that target to shoot for and something to maintain specifically. When you're cruising around at 3,500 feet, there's no way to know if you're 30 feet this way or that from your course. I mean, that's not what GPS is for. And if you do pilotage and dead reckoning, you're never going to know if you're within 30 feet of your course. But on the runway, you sure will. If that runway is, say, 65 feet wide and you're 30 feet left of center line, you're getting into the grass. So we really do want to focus on that center line and control the airplane so that we're on it right down final to touchdown and rollout. It's all connected. These things aren't separate from each other. Now take a look at the turn coordinator on the left side of the cockpit. It's okay to start with. He's wings level, a little bit left, a little bit right. But as he gets down to the flare here, the turn coordinator is showing the airplane is slightly banked to the left. he's left of the center line and banking left, and you'll notice the ball is right in the center. He's not making a correction to get back to the center line. This is a really common thing that you'll see in student pilots, low-time pilots, rusty pilots. We fly down final, okay, sure, a left of center line, that can be fixed. But we come down and we get to the round out, the flare, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. Just when we get to that part where we've got our power back and our nose comes up and we're pitched to land, really common is that low time or rusty pilots will just stop flying the airplane and lock up right there. They're waiting for impact. They're not actively flying the airplane anymore. And I think you'll see that's what happens here. Keep your eye on the turn coordinator at the bottom left there of the six-pack, and look what happens to the ball as he comes through this round out. It starts skewing off to the right. He's going left. He's left of center line, but that ball starts going out to the right. There. It's fully out to the right, and the rule of thumb is step on the ball. He should be adding right rudder here to get himself back to the center line. Unfortunately, he's actually got some left rudder in, even though he's left of center line, even though he's headed into the grass. Again, I'm not making fun of this guy. He's mentally overloaded. He wasn't actively flying the airplane in that last 20 feet. He's just waiting for impact. And then when he hits the ground and starts going left, he just doesn't make the appropriate correction. That can happen to any of us. But if we actively think about it and what could we do differently, that's where we're going to see a real difference in our landings. Because, as I said before, final, round out, touchdown, they're all connected. A good landing comes from a good, stable pattern, an approach that's very predictable, where we have specific configurations and airspeeds we're looking at. We're always adjusting to get back on that center line. We're putting ourselves on the glide path. Everything about it is an active pursuit. There is no point where we just stop and wait. That's not productive. The good news is, this problem that does happen, unfortunately, is absolutely fixable. What we want to do is fly a very stable, standardized approach where we know our numbers, we know our configuration, we're ready to execute on that, and we stay actively engaged the whole time. One of the things you'll notice in this is he's working the yoke in pitch and bank, but he's not using the rudders the way he should. And that's something that we can lose track of. It's one of the reasons tail dragger pilots love talking about being tail dragger pilots, because you have to use your feet. Sometimes we can get lazy in tricycle gear airplane and think it'll just guide itself. As this video shows, it really will guide itself, but not where you want to go. It's going to guide it where inertia is taking it, and that's not a ride you want to be on. If you've got any concerns about your ability to land an airplane and deal with a crosswind, consider this technique. It's one that's been used by CFIs for years. It really does work, and we tend to use it with students who are having some difficulty getting that last part of the landing down. When you get a beam the numbers and you make your power reduction and put in that first notch of flaps and retrim the airplane, don't make the power reduction as aggressive as you normally would. Maybe only bring it down to 2,000 RPMs, 1,900 RPMs, and fly the pattern like that. You'll get on to final and track the center line just fine. What you won't do is get low enough and slow enough to land. You'll end up still in the air, and that's okay. As you get partway down the runway and you clearly aren't going to land, power up, clean up incrementally, and do a go-around. There's two benefits to this approach. The first is it starts teaching you to actively track the center line through the entire approach. All the way from when you turn final to touchdown and beyond, you're actively tracking the center line. Even though you're not on the ground, you're doing that. The second thing it does is it teaches you that a go-around is a normal procedure. It's not an emergency thing. There's nothing to freak out about. You don't have to go full power, yank the nose up, and just go crazy. It's perfectly okay to just level off, add power, incrementally clean up the airplane, and climb out, tracking the center line the entire time. The next time you come around, reduce that throttle a little further, and then a little further, and then a little further, until eventually you fly a pattern where you do touch down. But at this point, you've gone around 3, 4, 5 times where you're tracking the center line, no matter what the wind is doing, and you're in a great position to actually control the airplane all the way down final, through the round out, into touchdown and rollout. You're actively controlling the airplane. And that's what's going to make you a really good pilot. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope it's helpful to you because I must admit, I had some challenges learning to fly, learning to land, just like everybody else. I hope this one helps you get over that fear and maybe get a little more precise in your landings. Please do us the favor of clicking like down below. Leave us a comment, pro or con, if you thought this was worthwhile or you didn't like it. And of course, subscribe to the channel because we love seeing that number grow. Thanks so much for being part of MadPropsAero. We really love having you here.